Hi guys, so we're talking about India today, which is one of my absolute favorite things to talk about. So India, as you can see here, it's so large we actually call it the subcontinent. So when we think about Indus River Valley civilization, and we'll come back to this map here for just a moment. So civilization is going to start here along the Indus River, and then later it will develop along the Ganges rivers. When we notice some important features, notice how the Himalaya mountains run through the north, and part of that is the Hindu Kush, which will come up later. So right here is Iran. So this is where the Persians were. Mesopotamia would have been over in this area as well. So it's a really diverse land. It has, today in India, there are over 100 different languages spoken with over 1,000 different dialects. And while most people in India today speak English because it was a British colony, there are lots and lots of different types of Indians. And when I say Indians, I'm talking about people who come from India. If I'm talking about Native Americans, I will say American Indian. So again, it's called a subcontinent because it's so large that if it didn't have the mountains, like the mountains kind of separate it from the rest of Asia. And it is a peninsula, has water on three sides. We have the Arabian Sea, the Bay of Bengal, and then the Indian Ocean. So they're thinking about its geography. The Himalayas, they are the tallest mountains in the world. Then we have the Hindu Kush, which borders, so this is present-day Pakistan, and here's India, and then present-day Afghanistan is right next door, okay? So when we say Afghanistan, Pakistan, we're talking, stan means land of, so Pakistan is the land of the Pakis, so it's like an ethnic group. Afghanistan is the land of the Afghanis. And then we have those areas there. Then the Khyber Pass is the mountain pass that to get through the Hindu Kush. To come into the Hindu Kush, you really have, it's a very, very, very narrow area. Because of this, Indian civilization is going to develop very isolated from other cultures. And so we don't see really Indian culture really practiced anywhere else in the world. This will be how the group that comes in who will dominate Indian culture will come through this small area of the Khyber Pass. All right, so when we're thinking about the Himalayas, largest, tallest mountains in the world. So these are some pictures of the Himalayas. Mount Everest, the tallest mountain in the world, is in the Himalayas. Himalayas separate India from China. They border each other. And you can see the Hindu Kush, and I have a more up-close picture of the Khyber Pass, but you can see that it's between the mountain. It's very narrow. I have friends who lived in Afghanistan, and they went to the Khyber Pass one time. So one of the things that really affects the weather in India is monsoon season. And these are seasonal winds, and they come from different directions. So the ones that blow over the Arabian Sea and the Indian Ocean, as you can imagine, they're going to bring lots of rain. Okay. And then the ones that come from the winter monsoons, it's much more dry. And so it can rain. When it rains, these monsoons cause massive flooding and could do major destruction. Remember, one of our big themes this year is how geography can impact your culture. So we're going to focus on the earliest civilizations in India to begin with, and then we're going to talk about later Indian culture. So there was two civilizations that developed along the Indus River, and they're called Mohenjo-daro and Harappa. And we don't really know a whole lot about them because we still have been unable to translate their writing. They did write, but we don't know what it says. We do know that they traded. We've actually found items that they traded in Mesopotamia, so we know that they were active in the trading. Probably, along the Arabian Sea, maybe even as camel caravans traveled through the Hindu Kush. So there's some of the writing you can see up there on the left. Kind of looks a little bit like cuneiform. And these cities were pretty organized. We know they have strong central governments. These cities also disappear. We really don't know what happened to them. We believe there was some type of natural disaster, but we don't really know. They weren't super large, but they are one of the 4 river valley civilizations. So they developed along the Indus River. Later, there will be a group of people come in and they'll spread out into the rest of India. So the Indus River is today in present-day Pakistan. Here's some views of Harappa, what is left of it. And you can see this is a drawing of what we think they would have, had the open, kind of like we saw in Çatalhöyük. They would have had the open roofs where they could climb up, but very organized, we can tell. Same thing in Mohenjo-daro, super organized. You can see like more of the writing. They had vessels, pottery. Definitely advanced civilization And anytime you have writing, that makes you an advanced civilization. There's only about 9 civilizations that develop their own independent writing with no influence from anybody else. We're going to watch this little short video that gives you a better description of Mohenjo-Daro.
The ancient city of Mohenjo-Daro is one of the first urban centers in human history. Nestled in southern Pakistan's Indus River Valley, Mohenjo-Daro is the largest and best preserved city of the Indus civilization, the earliest known civilization of the Indian subcontinent. Mohenjo-Daro was built around 2500 BC, about the same time the Great Pyramids were being built in Egypt, and it spanned a surface area of nearly 500 acres, an incredible size for a city of this time period. Because of Mohenjo-Daro's grand scale, archaeologists believe it may have served as a seat of power for the Indus civilization. The city was divided into 2 districts, the Citadel and the Lower Town. The Citadel is home to the city's exceptional monuments, including the Great Bath, a 900 square foot tank fed from the Indus River. Mohenjo-Daro also had a sophisticated water system. Houses had baths and toilets, and the town featured both an elaborate sewage system and fresh water in 700 wells throughout the city. The Roman baths, some of history's most famous waterway systems, weren't constructed until many hundreds of years after Mohenjo-Daro's Great Bath. Mohenjo-Daro has no places of worship or governance, such as palaces, royal tombs, or temples. This may indicate that the society was not built around state interests like the Egyptian and Mesopotamian societies at the time. Rather, the class structure of Mohenjo-Daro may have been relatively equal. The city's second district, the Lower Town, may demonstrate the society's egalitarian structure.
Egalitarian means
the Lower
equal?
Town, with its intricate water system, was home to between 20,000 to 40,000 people. Unlike many urban areas of its time, it was laid out in a grid system similar to modern-day city blocks. After approximately 600 years, the city collapsed. No one is quite sure why, but the cause could potentially have been a change within the culture, or in the path of the river. Without its crucial source of water, the city's residents may have moved away, leaving Mohenjo-Daro nearly abandoned. In 1911, nearly 4,000 years after the city fell into ruin, archaeologists paid their first visit. The ensuing decades of excavations have unearthed countless clues that tell the tale of Mohenjo-Daro, but it still holds secrets for us to discover.
So one of the things we want to get from these civilizations is we know how super advanced and organized they were. The fact that they have this grid system, the sewer system, I mean, it's just way much more advanced than other ones that we're seeing. And it's really kind of sad that we don't know what their writing says. When I was younger and learning about them for the first time, I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to be the code breaker who finally figures them out. We do know that there were some sacrifices for animals and stuff, so they could possibly have had some kind of polytheistic religion. But we don't really know a whole lot about that at that time period. So here's present day the Khyber Pass. They've cut through it a little bit more, but it's a very narrow area where only kind of one car can go through at points. So why is the Khyber Pass important? Well, this kept invaders from coming for a long time. And eventually there's a group of people called the Aryans who came down in their Indo-European people, meaning coming from like Asia and Europe. And they come down through the Khyber Pass. And they are what we would call them warrior herders, meaning that they were strong fighters, but they also were a nomadic people. And they get to this area and they're like, dude, let's stay. Like there's something here. So they came around 1500 BC through the Hindu Kush. They came in chariots and they settled in the Ganges Plain. So they went further into present day India. The head of their tribe was called the Raj. And their economy was centered among cattle herds. Cattle were very important. This is why in Hindu culture and Indian culture today, cows are sacred and actually is a tradition from here because cows were actually used as a form of money, like how people bartered and exchanged money. And originally, the most important group of people in Indian society were the warriors. And again, this is because of the Aryans. They did have their own language, the written language of Sanskrit. Writing comes a little bit later because they believed when you wrote something down that it was very powerful. And so they didn't write things down for a very long time. For a long time, everything is through oral tradition. All of their religious rituals were recorded in a book called the Vedas. And this is not one single book, but rather a collection of books. And the Vedas are a very important religious text, which we will see. This is what Sanskrit looks like. It's still the base of the Hindi, which is the major Indian language today. So with these Aryans, they brought something called the caste system. Now, the caste system is a hierarchical system. So just like in Egypt, we studied how that when you have this pyramid, that the people at the top have the most amount of power and the people at the bottom have the least amount of power. And the people at the top also are the smallest group. So originally, the Kshatriyas, who are the warriors, the princes and warriors, were at the top of this caste system. But later on, the Brahmins, who are the teachers, the priests, they became the most important because they knew the religious rituals. The untouchables are so low, they're below the caste system. Now, I have a little acronym to help you remember them. You may not like my acronym, but I came up with this a long time ago, and the more silly something is, sometimes the easier it is to remember. So here's my acronym to remember the order. Bad kids visit Satan underground. Okay, so Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Shudras, and untouchables. So the Brahmins, again, are priests and teachers. The Kshatriyas are warriors and princes. The Vaishyas are merchants and artisans, people who sell things, crafts. Shudras were farmers. And then the untouchables are so low, they're below the caste system. Now, the caste system is a very important concept in the religion that will develop. The Aryans will bring with them their religion, and then what will develop becomes Hinduism, which many consider to be the world's oldest religion because it predates Judaism. Now, there are two very important concepts in Hinduism, and they are Dharma and Karma. So Dharma is your duties, your obligations. So when you were born into a caste. So let's say that I'm born as a Kshatriya. So I'm a warrior, I'm a soldier. Now my Dharma, my duty is to do what my caste says, my job. And I have an obligation to do that. And I can't complain about it. Because if I complain about it, when I die, they also believe in reincarnation, that your soul would be reborn. Now, karma is the consequences of your actions. So when you do something good, you get good karma. When you do something bad, you get bad karma. The caste system ensured that people would accept their place in society because if you complain, there's nothing you can do about it. And it would move down when you die. So Hinduism is based on this belief that your soul is placed in a body on the caste system. And then at the end of your life, if you have good karma and you've done your dharma, then you can move up the caste system. You may have to be a Sudra a couple of times, but eventually you'll move up. So Hinduism, these are the basic principles. So this symbol that you see here on this side is called Om, like yoga kind of thing. Like that actually comes from Hinduism. That's where yoga originated. And so it started in India. They believe that all life is sacred. They're vegetarians. So this is one of the reasons that cows are sacred, because for the longest time, they were the way that they made money under the Aryans. And then they're going to stop eating them, and they are going to become, sorry, a little earthquake in here as I moved my chair. They're going to become the most important. They're going to become sacred. And you can be reincarnated. They believe you can be reincarnated as an animal, and it's not a bad thing to be reincarnated as a cow. So reincarnation is the rebirth of your soul. And if some of this seems a little complicated, I'm going to do another little video just on Hinduism and Buddhism again as like a little review that you could watch before you do your activity. Karma is the consequences of your actions, and Dharma is your duty. So we kind of hit those key. And then they believe in the practice of nonviolence. This is called ahimsa. So what they believe is you're going to be born on the caste system, and you're going to keep moving up, doing good, doing your good Dharma, having good karma, until you eventually reach the top as a Brahmin. And then you will reunite with the one major god, Brahman Nirgana.
Any students in Seafield who needs to go.
I'm going to apologize now if we get interrupted a couple of times. Okay, so Moksha is the union with Brahman Nirgana. Now, my college professor, this is how she explained it to me. She says, imagine that in your soul is something called Atman. Atman is a little piece of your soul that actually was part of Brahma Nirgana, part of God. And then you keep being reincarnated because your soul, that little part of your soul, wants to rejoin with Brahma Nirgana, that little part called Atman. And the flame of a candle, what happens when it gets a little more oxygen? It becomes just a little bit bigger. So the idea is that you're going to stop being reborn eventually when you would achieve moksha, the end of all of this. Okay? A little confusing, I know. Now, the Hindus, according to our scholars, are polytheistic. But if you were to say that to any Hindu, they would be offended. They actually view themselves more as what we have a word called monism. They believe that every god that they worship is actually just a little part of Brahma Nirgana. Okay? And they believe in lots of different ones. I'm going to introduce you to a couple. So here we go. We have my favorite god of the Hindu gods is Vishnu, which you saw in the picture before. And that's because Vishnu is the divine savior. He actually has been born into man 8 times. And my favorite story of India is the Ramayana, which you have an opportunity to hear a little bit more about the Ramayana and the extension activity. And it talks about Rama, and every time that the world needs saving, Vishnu is born into Rama, who then saves the world. But he's the savior. Ganesha, a lot of people really like him. He's a little elephant god, but he's of good luck and finances and security, like he brings wealth to your family. Krishna is a great warrior, but he brings prosperity and lots of good things for people. Here's Rama. You can see Shiva is the destroyer. There's also Hanuman, which is the monkey god. So there's a lot of fun things. Now, Hindus do not try to convert people to Hinduism. Like, you're born as a Hindu. And they believe that there's many paths to God, and this is just the one that they believe in. And in order, what most Hindus do is they actually pick devotion to one God, and then they worship that one God, and they maybe have a little altar at their home. Like, for example, if you watch maybe some Bollywood movies or whatever, you might see like a little picture of Ganesha on the wall, and they maybe have like a little candle or something lit for them. And additionally, you could also, once, many men do this older in their life, when they have done all their duties and obligations for their family, they leave everything and they become an ascetic, which basically means you become like a monk, like you give up everything in your life and you shave your head and you go and you learn under a guru. All right, so that brings us now to Buddhism. So here's what happens. Basically, there's this prince. His name is Siddhartha Gautama. And he lives in this fancy, fancy palace. And he decides to go out one day and he sees an old man, a sick man, and a dying man. And he's like, why is there all this suffering in life? So then he's like, how do I fix this? So he studies in Hinduism.
Any students at A who need.
So he finds no answer in Hinduism. So he decides to continue studying. He tries all different things. He tries living this like wealthy life. He tries living like this really poor life. And he finally decides, I'm just going to sit under this tree until I figure it out. And then he became enlightened. He figured it out. So here's what his ideas are. Now, the Vedas and the Upanishads are the important text for the Hindus. For Buddhists, Siddhartha Gautama, he then teaches people his beliefs. And because of that, he gets the title Buddha, great teacher, or enlightened one. Now, he never physically wrote down his teachings, but his followers did. He gave a very famous sermon in Deer Park, and his teachings were collected onto the 3 baskets, and that is the name of their holy book. He taught that you had to believe the 4 noble truths, and then you would follow the Eightfold Path. He rejected the Hindu gods. He rejected the caste system. So you can imagine a lot of Hindus are like, dude, this is awesome. Like, I'm a lowly untouchable. This guy says anybody can achieve enlightenment. And when you achieve in full enlightenment, you achieve nirvana. So here are the 4 noble truths. First of all, life is suffering. Life sucks. Everybody knows it. There's problems in life. So you have to then understand what is the cause of suffering. And the cause of the suffering is desire. We want things that we can't have. Okay. Sometimes it can be trivial things. Sometimes it could be something deeper. For example, I don't have children. Now, I'm not suffering because of that, but at one time in my life, I did want children, and maybe it could have caused me suffering. I'm okay with it now. I get to teach all of you. And so then then you must realize that life is suffering. Suffering is caused because of desire. So to end suffering, we have to end desire. So how do I stop wanting things? If you figure that out, yeah, you let me know. Well, Buddha says the way that we stop wanting things is to follow the Eightfold Path. And to follow the Eightfold Path, it's the middle path, and you are to avoid extremes. So you shouldn't be super gluttonous. Like, don't eat a ton of food, but also don't starve yourself. Be in the middle. You should always think about right action, right speech. Like, don't talk too much, but don't talk too little. Everything is about the middle path and about how you live, how you respect people, okay? To free your mind of evil, to be not evil, to control your thoughts. And the way that you do this is through meditation. Now, both Hindus and Buddhists believe in yoga. There is a lot of similarities between Hinduism and Buddhism because Buddha was a Hindu, okay? So he brings a lot of that in. They both believe all life is sacred. They both believe in reincarnation. They both believe in karma. They both started in India. But Buddhism rejects the caste system, rejects the Hindu gods. Buddhism is actually what we call non-theistic, which means that it doesn't actually believe in a god. Okay, now, if you're a little overwhelmed with Hinduism and Buddhism, it's okay. We're going to come back to it a little bit later. Here's your key things. Hinduism, caste system, reincarnation, karma, dharma. Got it? Dharma is your duty. Karma is a consequence of your actions. Buddhism rejects the caste system. You got to believe the Four Noble Truths and follow the Eightfold Path. Okay? That's the key things. Now, Buddhism doesn't become largely accepted for a while. But Indian society is going to continue to advance. So we have the Mauryan Empire, Chandragupta Maurya.
Any students in the auditorium.
So the Mauryan Empire is the largest empire under the Indian civilization. Created a postal system, tries to mix Hinduism and Buddhism together to create this new religion called Jainism, but nobody follows it after he dies. They really feel strongly that, every living thing is a soul. Both Buddhists and Hindus believe that all life is sacred and really increase trade. Also set up, so we got the postal system and we see trade. Now, Ashoka is the great-grandson of Chandragupta Maurya. He is the most important that we need to know and remember. So he basically had fought and did all these things, and he gets really disturbed by this. And so he becomes a Buddhist because he's very much disturbed by all the war and violence that he's seen in his life. So he encourages trade through caravans. He sets up stupas, which are rest areas and little Buddhist temples. He puts little water fountains and stuff out for people. It's really kind of amazing, all the little things he does. Then he sends Buddhist missionaries to China. So ABC. Ashoka sends Buddhist missionaries to China. Okay? And that's how they'll get Buddhism in East Asia, where it's going to flourish. So you can see a drawing of Ashoka there. This is one of the stupas that he builds. So they send these missionaries to go out and spread the faith all throughout Asia, specifically into China. Set up free hospitals, veterinary clinics. Like, he doesn't want any harm to anybody, and builds a great road system. So there's the Mauryan Empire. You can see how large it was. Now, here's the thing, though. The Mauryans did a lot of great things, but they fall. And the Guptas are going to be the one that we remember the most. Because when we think about what India is like today, it's the Guptas who did that. So they focused their teachings and learnings on Hindu texts and kind of rejected Buddhism. So Buddhism is going to kind of maybe be slightly absorbed into Hinduism. They think Buddha's a great teacher, but Buddhism's not really followed in India today. It's going to go to China. They made Hinduism the official religion of the empire, and they do these amazing math contributions. So there are very few civilizations that actually have understood the concept of zero, and that's what the Guptas did. They also, the numbers that we use today, the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, they're called Arabic numerals, but they came from India. So the Indians traded with the Arabs, and then the Arabs traded with Europe. Because the Europeans got them from the Arabs, they called them Arabic numerals. So like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's our numbers. We got them from the Indians. They explained the concept of infinity. They did all kinds of advances in algebra. So Arabs developed algebra, but the Guptas take it even further. So they're really known for all their math contributions. Even though their empire collapses, their culture is going to survive. And they also were a big trade along the Silk Road. They're going to do textiles and all kinds of cool things. So that's everything for India today. I think that Hinduism and Buddhism can be a little bit overwhelming. So if you have any questions about that, when you do your activity tomorrow on Hinduism and Buddhism, I have another little short video to help you review those. So let's remember about the Guptas, that they're the ones who do all of our math contributions, and they focus on Hinduism. And the Mauryans were the largest empire, and the Mauryans did like the postal service, and they're the ones who sent the missionaries, the Buddhist missionaries, to China. All right. I hope you guys do well on your assignments. You've got an exit ticket that you can review for this. And of course, I printed out for you your notes, which you can use to help you with everything.